and the guardsman didn't move. He stood there as if he didn't see the carcass coming at him with fangs capable of biting through bone. I remember time stood still. The Rottweiler jumped, jaws open. A fraction of a second more, and he would be at his throat. But then the guardsman moves. His arms explode in the air, catching the dog in a leap. All in an instant. A turn, a tug. The dog is on the ground, pinned down, unable to move. The crowd exploded with screams. The dog's owner took a step forward and smirked. "Let him go, soldier boy, or hell tear you up." And then I saw the guardsman slowly raise his head and say, "He's already torn." The crowd around me froze. I saw people stop breathing. Someone was frantically clutching their phone in their hands, but no one was filming. Everyone just sunk their eyes into the scene. The guard was holding the Rottweiler as if it were not a rabid killing machine, but an ordinary mongrel. The dog was tearing, sliding its paws on the stone tiles, but it couldn't break free. And its master, he looked at it and couldn't believe his eyes. "What are you waiting for?" he bellowed, stepping closer. "Let him go, you coward. Or are you afraid he'll eat you?" I saw the bastard's face. Normal-looking, mid-40s, bald, the veins in his neck bulging, rage in his eyes. Some kind of skull tattooed on his shoulder. This wasn't just a tourist. This bastard came here with a purpose. The guardsman stared at him in silence and wouldn't let go of the dog. "Can you hear me?" The dog's master stepped forward, almost closely. I said, "Let go." And then something happened that no one expected. The guardsman spoke up. "You're making a huge mistake." His voice was low and calm. No fear, no anger, not a single emotion. But there was more menace in those words than in this psycho's screams. The dog owner froze. And I saw. He suddenly tensed up a little. He was scared. For a second. For a split second. But I saw it. And he realized, too, that his fear had been seen. "No, no, no, no. I can't lose this." I read it in his eyes. And then he stepped even closer. "You fucking dummy. You think you're tough?" The crowd boiled up. People looked over. This was no longer a common offense. Had attacked a guardsman. And the man, he didn't even blink. "You don't know who you're messing with." The words pierced the air like a gunshot. And that's when the guards came up. The crowd boiled over. People realized this was no longer just an incident. This was a direct threat. But the worst part was something else. The guard remained silent. He continued to squeeze the dog's neck, holding it in such a position that the Rottweiler couldn't even growl normally. But he didn't take his eyes off his master. The man began to boil. "You fucking dummy. You think you're tough." He burst forward. I saw his hand reach for the guardsman's face, but didn't get there in time. In the blink of an eye, everything turned upside down. Click. In an instant, the guardsman loosened his grip on the dog and simultaneously shot his elbow forward, right in the chest. With a thud, the attacker flew backwards. The crowd exploded with screams. The man collapsed on his back, trying to gasp for air. He didn't realize what had just happened. You can't touch me. You broke the rules." His voice trailed off. The guardsman stepped forward. A single step. But that step forced his attacker into the ground. "Rules?" The guardsman's voice was icy. The crowd froze. A second, too. And then I heard that sound. A growl. But not from the master. It was the dog. I looked down and I couldn't believe my eyes. The Rottweiler was no longer tearing towards his master. He slowly rose to his feet, but he was no longer looking at the guard. He was looking at the man who had sicked him on him. The man noticed this. "Bruno, no? No, it's me. Bruno to me." But the dog didn't move. I saw something change in the beast's eyes. It was as if it only now realized who it had been listening to all this time. The guardsman lowered his hand. The dog didn't move. "You don't know who you're messing with." Those words hung in the air like a lightning strike. At that moment, the guards approached. The crowd was out of breath. I saw people clutching their phones, but no one took pictures, too afraid to miss a moment. The bastard was crawling on the ground, the same man who had just thought he was the master of the situation. But it wasn't him who had the power now. It was with the guardsman and the dog. The Rottweiler didn't growl, didn't attack, just stared. But who was he looking at? Not the guardsman. He was looking at his master. I saw the man's face turn white. "Bruno. Bruno, come here." His voice trailed off. But the dog didn't move. The guardsman didn't move either. He simply remained silent. But there was pure power in that silence. I don't know how to explain it, but I could feel it. The guardsman was now in control of the situation. And that asshole, he had lost everything. What did you do to him? Did you hypnotize him? He wailed, convulsively rising from the ground. The guardsman bowed his head. Silently, just as the Rottweiler had looked a second ago. I saw the man swallow. He felt it. You couldn't. No, he's my dog. He obeys me. He started to stagger back. Bruno, come to me. And then the Rottweiler moved. But not towards him. Towards the guardsman. The crowd gasped. I couldn't believe my eyes. The Rottweiler sat next to him, right at his feet, as if waiting for a command. The guardsman lowered his hand. Slowly, the Rottweiler raised his head. I saw the dog waiting for a command. From him. Not from the one who let her go on a killing spree, but from the one who stopped her. No. No. It's impossible. The man rushed forward, but the guardsman didn't give him a chance. He took a step. Just one step forward. But that step changed everything. The man recoiled sharply. Don't come near me. He was now a hunted victim. The guardsman was looking straight at him. You're in his power now. The voice was icy, but not just cold. Absolutely dead. I saw a chill run down the man's back. Suddenly, he turned and ran. The crowd parted, but they wouldn't let him through. And then the police came. The man flew right into the hands of two officers. They grabbed him, twisted him, pinned him face down on the ground. The crowd was cheering. Some were yelling, some were applauding. And I looked at the guardsman. He stood straight. His white glove slowly clenched into a fist. I realized this wasn't just a fight. He had just broken the freak and took everything from him. And then he did something no one expected. He got down on one knee, and he stroked the dog's head. For a second, 2 seconds. The Rottweiler closed his eyes. He sighed and lay down at his feet. He chose his side. The guardsman rose slowly, looked around, looked into the eyes of the crowd, and returned to his post, as if nothing had happened. But I knew, and everyone around me knew. This day will go down in history. The police had already rounded up the bastard. He was wriggling, swearing, yelling at everyone. You have no right. That's my dog. That's my goddamn dog. But he wasn't his dog anymore. The Rottweiler lay at the guardsman's feet, breathing heavily, but not making a single movement toward his master. It was all over. But there was something else. I noticed the guardsman still didn't move. He was standing, but something in his posture had changed. He looked at the arrestee for too long. I saw his fingers clench into a fist. The crowd sensed it. Something was wrong. A guardsman shouldn't react, shouldn't show emotion. But now he was showing them. I sensed it before anyone else. This man, this soldier. He was angry. He wasn't just angry, he was furious. He wasn't looking at this freak as a trespasser. He was looking at him as a target. And then he spoke. Loudly. Clearly. So that every word stabbed into the air like a knife. You made a mistake. And now you will pay. The crowd froze. The cop stopped too, holding the detainee. The man fell silent. I saw him turn pale. You can't talk to me like that. The guardsman took a step forward. Slowly. Steadily. As if measuring every inch of distance between himself and this piece of trash. You used an animal as a weapon. His voice rumbled over the crowd. You didn't come here as a tourist. You came to attack. His hand slowly clenched into a steel fist. You tried to intimidate me. You thought I was just a soldier in a suit. He fell silent. The air thickened around his every word. You were wrong. The crowd exploded with whispers. People realized they were seeing something unusual. A royal guardsman, breaking the silence. He speaks. And he doesn't just speak. He speaks. The detainee panicked. Hey, officers, do something. He's threatening me. This is a violation. He can't act like this. The police officers didn't move. They were listening too. And then the guardsman did the second impossible thing. He lowered his gaze to the dog. Then he bent down and removed his glove. The crowd gasped. He must never take off his gloves on duty. Never. But he did. And held out his hand to the dog. The crowd tensed. Everyone was waiting. What's going to happen now? What does this mean? The Rottweiler raised his head and licked the guard's hand. Licked it. Like a puppy. The crowd erupted into a scream. It was something ancient, something more than an ordinary incident. It was a moment of power. A symbol. The dog had changed masters. The guardsman stroked its head. And then he spoke again. I am not just a soldier. Am not just a guard. Am not just a man in uniform. He looked up. I am a royal guard. I am the guardian of this land, and I will not allow the likes of you to bring evil here." The crowd roared. The policemen looked at each other, and then the senior officer nodded slowly. This man didn't just break the law. He has committed a crime against the crown. The crowd froze. Therefore, he will answer to a court-martial.